Hey guys, welcome back to the Meet the Athlete podcast. In today's episode, I'm joined by Corey Campbell. Now, Corey Campbell is a world record holder. He's an upcoming future talent in the sport. It's great to chat to him. I've trained with him once before and he's an overall great lad, really down to earth. And I really hope that you guys kind of can see that through this podcast. So yeah, thank you Corey for coming on to the podcast. I'm kind of thinking about taking this podcast down a kind of future stars, uprising talent, that sort of kind of path. I think there's lots of podcasts in the same thing, talking to and interviewing already established athletes. So I kind of want to get into kind of interviewing some younger athletes, more people that are kind of breaking into the sport, still young, still kind of developing their name, getting their name out there. So let me know what you think. Feel free to send me an email at coledistancerunning@gmail.com or send me a DM on Instagram to let me know your thoughts. But anyway, enjoy the podcast. Thanks for Corey for coming on. Enjoy this episode of the Meet the Athlete podcast. So guys, we're joined by Corey Campbell, the under 15 world record holder for the mile. How are we?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, Cole. How are you?
I'm very, very good. I'm freezing, as you can see, from the copious amounts of layers I'm wearing and a hat indoors. But have you done any running today?
No, today's actually my day off, so I was in the gym a little bit just to keep busy, but on a whole, I wasn't running, no.
No. What did you get up to in the gym?
A bit of upper body stuff, some pull-ups, which I'm atrocious at, a bit of dumbbell bench press, a bit of shoulder press. I think that was most of it.
Yeah, for sure. Do you value kind of upper body stuff? Because I know that a lot of people, including myself, neglect the upper body stuff. I can't remember the last time I did anything to do with my upper body.
Yeah, I'd say I value it to a certain extent. Like I think it's fairly important, but I wouldn't say it's make or break. Like I don't think you need to have a really strong upper body to perform decently. I think it's more important to be all well-rounded conditioning wise. So if you're like conditioned well all round, then I think you're able to like maybe hold your form a little bit better at the end of races, when it gets hard and you feel relaxed, especially something like an 800 meters. But I think on a whole, like, doesn't make a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate that. So just for the people that maybe don't know who you are, obviously I know who you are. I've trained with you before. Just quickly, just introduce yourself. Just quickly mention kind of like how old you are, where you're based, and yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, as Cole said, I'm Corey Campbell. I'm a middle distance runner, so I do sort of the 800, 1500, 3000 meters. I'm based up in a little town just outside Edinburgh. I've run 3:48 for 1500, 4:05 for the mile, which was, as Cole said, the boys aged 15 mile world best. I've run 8:09 for 3000 meters, and I'm hoping to improve those times in the summer season ahead.
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't too long ago that you ran 8:09. Actually, was it? Was it only a couple of weeks ago?
So I ran 8:13 indoors recently.
Okay, that's what I've seen then.
But I did 8:09 in August out in Norway.
Very cool, very cool. Which of those three events do you actually find the hardest, the 8, 15 or 3K?
I think the 3000 has to be the hardest. I think the 3000 might be the hardest physically, but I think the 1500 might be the hardest to get right, because with the 1500, I think sometimes if you don't run it right, you can end up either cooking yourself too early and then you don't feel content when you finished, or you can leave it a little bit late and then you don't end up cooking yourself to the full extent. So I think it's quite difficult to get right in that respect, and with championship racing as well. However, I think that the 3000, like a lot of the time, the 3000 is just a hard run from the gun. So, someone takes the race out and you're just hanging on, especially in stuff like BMC meetings. So I'd say physically the 3000 is hardest because you're in that sort of VO2 max zone for a very long time. But the 1500 is quite difficult to get right tactically.
I see. So kind of like the margin for error is the greatest at the 1500.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, for sure. The reason I ask is obviously because I don't know if you've seen the interview with Jake Whiteman like a couple of weeks ago, and also I think he did an episode on I think it's a Sunday podcast or something, and he said they actually found the 3K like the toughest of the three. So yeah, I was just intrigued to hear your thoughts on that. So overall, how would you say the kind of the last few weeks have gone for you training wise, race wise? You started indoor seasons pretty well.
Yeah, so I think training wise, things have been going pretty well recently. I've just been trying to get stronger. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to become a bit more all-rounded. So working on areas of my weakness. So upper body strength is an area that I'm a bit weaker in. I'd say my acceleration, my top end speed, those are areas that I am sort of weaker in. But currently, we're not really specializing too much. So mostly easy, steady running, some threshold running, and a little bit of speed development for mechanics and for maintaining form at higher speeds. But on a whole, we're not doing anything too specific yet. So I started my indoor season. I did 3,000 meters. I ran 8:13, which is only 4 seconds behind my personal best. And that was a tough race. There was a few laps in there that sort of really ruined the time, So for anyone that doesn't quite know the split, 64s is 8 flat pace for the 3,000. So I was on sort of 64s for the first K, and then there was 300-400 meter laps that just killed the whole race. And then I think it was like a 67, a 68, and a 69. And they were what was the real big difference between running a massive PB. So I think there's definitely some areas that I'm missing from my training at the moment, but that's not at fault of my own. I don't think that's at fault of my coach. I think that's just the stage of the year. And I think going into the summer, those are areas that I could definitely work on and definitely see those improvements in, or at least I'd like to think so.
Yeah, for sure. Those 3 laps, and this was indoor, right? So actually, it ends up being 6 laps, right? Yeah, for sure. So, those 6 laps, the reason they were slower was it because of the way the race went, or you found you were fatiguing quite a bit? Because obviously, 64-second laps, that's rapid. That
So
is,
I think it's more the way the race went. So like I was on the front group of guys at sort of a kilometer, and then they sort of made a little bit of a surge, only sort of 50, 60 meters, but it really like broke the elastic. And once that sort of elastic was broken, I wasn't able to work off them. So I was almost running solo for the last 2 kilometers, which made it very difficult because I find myself, I'm much more capable of pushing myself to a really like deep hole if I'm with other people. When I ran my personal best last year, I was on people till the last 100 meters. So having been put in that situation where there was no one around me really until the last 200 when someone overtook me, it was more difficult to push. And it was sort of mentally tough. And I think that made those 3 laps what really killed the time. That sort of grit, no matter how hard I was working, I felt like I was almost like hanging on rather than pushing.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Just to kind of go on a bit of a tangent, really, it sounds like for such a young lad, you really understand your training. You understand why you're doing things. You understand the different races. And I don't think that's very common. I think even myself, who's 21, I don't fully understand what I'm doing. It sounds like you've got a really good knowledge. Is that something your coach tries to kind of really instill in you, like explain why you're doing things?
Yeah, definitely. So my coach, he's really good at explaining sort of why we're doing the training and why, how does that apply to race situations. However, equally, I do myself as an athlete, I value knowing what's going on. I feel to me that if I don't know what's going on, I feel almost like a loss of control to a certain extent. And I think like you might have seen Ingebrigtsen's Athletics Weekly interview where
Uh-huh.
he basically mentioned that he has quite a big input in writing his training program. Well, I think you need to understand to a certain extent racing, training, and where you are in the training cycle. And if you're at a point of training where you're not going to be, you're strong, but you're not fast, well, you can't then expect to be fast. You can't expect to close your fastest final 400 at the same pace as you would in the summer if you've not even touched some VO2 max, like really quite hard anaerobic reps.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because obviously, I know I'm running pretty well. Like, if you tell me to go and do a threshold run, I can do a threshold run. But it sounds like, yeah, you've got a really good understanding of why you're doing everything and how it kind of is applicable to a race situation. I think that's really important and great. Is like a great sign for your development in the future. Um, with your coach, obviously you mentioned that you're really invested in your training plan. Has that always been the case, or is it only something that's kind of recently kind of come in as you've matured a little bit?
Um, I'd say I work closer with my coach now, sort of over the last couple of years than I did prior to those years. I think if you sort of take me back to when I first moved up to the endurance group of my club, I think I was probably 11 or 12 years old. I wouldn't say I had much of a say then in my sessions. I think that was more when I was just learning, like, run, like I learning how to do the sessions more so. And obviously I'm still learning how to do the sessions, but now I have a bit of a better understanding of why we're doing which session when, and I've seen the appliances of the sessions. So I think the input that I've gained over the last couple of years is is beneficial to me, at least, because it allows, like, and my coach would agree, if he watches this and he sees me say this, hears me say this, that sometimes I will say, well, do you think that's best with this race on here? Do you think that's best with what I did yesterday? I think what a lot of athletes and coaches maybe lack is communication. So it's vital. Like, you need to say if you're having a rough day. If you've had an exam that day and you are just exhausted, there's no point in then going and running a really hard session, because that's not going to benefit you. You need to recover. So I think like something that I was once told was, even if you say to your coach, I was out and I was very drunk last night, I was steaming last night, I was told, like, even if that's what was going on, you need to say. And the coach might be thinking to themselves, oh goodness me, like, this is a disaster.
Like,
But
doesn't care or whatever. Yeah.
but really, like, he needs to just say, well, that's what's happened. That we can't change that now. You can't change the past. So it's important to look at it that way, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. So just quickly kind of reiterating what I've just said and kind of expanding on it a little bit. Your maturity when it comes to your training, I think it's fair to say, and at the risk of potentially alienating a few younger runners at the club that I train at, you're so much more mature, and you talk about training not like a 15-year-old lad. You talk about it like you've been in the sport for ages. Is that something that's purely down to your coach, or is it because you do it, kind of your own research outside the sport? Yeah, what's kind of made you this knowledgeable is what I'm trying to get at, essentially.
I think I'm really keen to know why. I need to know, like, as for me as an athlete, I need to know why I'm doing something. I need to know. I think so. Like I said, the love of the sport. I remember being sort of 12 years old and looking at YouTube videos of the Kenyans and thinking, well, why do they just run a dirt field? They could run around the streets if they wanted to. They could run on the road, but they still choose to run around a dirt field in barefoot. Why do they do this? I think the desire to want to know more is sort of something that I've always had. And I think a lot of people would say, as a young child, I was a bit of a why is the grass green sort of kid, like, I need to know why. Um, I think that doesn't just apply to my running. I'd definitely say my coach has got a great influence on that as well. I remember a couple of years ago in the summer doing a session 4x K, and him explaining why we break the reps up. So we don't just do K, 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 K. We do K, 2 500s, 5 200s, 10 100s. And he explained that that's because as you get more tired, the mechanics break down, and the ability to run with good form is important. And I think, like, hearing things like that, it just makes sense to me. It's something that I like to know why. It gives this session more of a purpose. So I think like having the influence of my coach and of YouTube and the love of running and just researching. I've read a couple books. Running with the Kenyans, Jamaica, like was one of them. I think all that together is sort of why I take the approach I do with like wanting to know more.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And hopefully any younger listeners listen to this, they can kind of take away from that and kind of think, okay, maybe I need to start asking my coach more questions. Why am I doing this session? Why am I doing this run? Because yeah, as I said, I think a lot of people your age, they just kind of they do what they're told. And that's great to an extent. Always listen to your coach, but sometimes you got to question why, and push back a little bit if you like, and kind of I think it should be a two-way thing rather than just a one-way, do this, do this. Have you got any kind of peak races coming up? Anything that you're really looking forward to?
So not I wouldn't say a peak race, but something that I'm really looking forward to, and I think will be a great race. I'm racing the high school boys mile at New Balance Indoor Grand Prix. So
Okay.
that's over in Boston.
Yeah, yeah. Is
That's
that at the New Balance
yeah, at the
track
New
thing?
Balance track. Yeah, so that'll be brilliant. Um, but I think that'll be a new experience. Traveling 5 hours in the plane. There's a lot of jet lag to take into consideration. I'm not peaking for it as such, but I'd say it is something that I'd like to do well at. I'd really like to improve upon my 405 mile. And if I could do that, that would be fantastic. But ultimately, I'd rather, I want to go out there and learn. I'm going to have the opportunity to race against some really good runners. And I think that will definitely benefit me in the long term.
Yeah, for sure. So when is that race?
The race is on the 4th of February.
4th of February. Also, it's going around pretty quickly. Only a kind of couple, well, yeah, less than a couple of weeks now. Um, and yeah, maybe hopefully sign a contract while you're out there, lay some lay some bricks down for future relationships, maybe. Um, so what's the name of your coach? You've mentioned him quite a lot. But just for maybe the listeners at home,
So my coach's name is Alistair Russell.
Alistair Russell, and is this part of a club or is this an external thing that he coaches you?
So he coaches at my club. Yeah. So yeah, he's always been my coach really since I was about 11 years old.
And which club is this?
Team Slovian Athletics Club,
Ah, okay.
best club in Scotland.
Is that confirmed or is that a biased opinion?
That's maybe a biased opinion, but people can decide.
So I mentioned earlier, and it's probably not going to be the last time I mention it, that you've got a world record to your name, which is not something that's quite common. What I want to talk about now is a bit more kind of like your school life, but also like kind of like how you get your training around school. But one thing I just quickly want to ask: do like your mates at school, do teachers, at school, do they understand kind of like how good you are and this kind of what you've achieved, or is it kind of a bit unknown?
So my school at especially in the last sort of years, been quite good at recognizing achievements, not just like from myself, but achievements of other people as well. I'd say sometimes there are some teachers that understand a lot more than others. So, I remember I went into a maths class after I broke that mile world record. And my teacher said to me, like, oh, like I saw that on Twitter, that's crazy. Um, and that was really nice. I think that sort of recognition is really good. My mates, I'd say they're like my biggest hype men. Like they're always saying, they're always gassing me up. And I think that's brilliant. But I'd say on a whole, my school life, some people understand, some people don't. Some people just like think I just run about a bit. But I think the world record sort of thing, everyone gets that. Everyone knows what a world record is. I've had people ask me if it's in the Guinness Book of World Records and stuff, which maybe doesn't work when I say that it's not. They're maybe not quite so excited, but yeah.
No, I completely, well, obviously I haven't got a world record, but it's definitely frustrating when kind of, I know I get up at 6 o'clock to do a 10 mile run before uni, and people be like, oh, I saw you running this morning, like how far did you run? Like 3K? And I'll be like, what? 3K? Like I get up early and I work hard, and yeah, I think people don't understand that. So yeah, it's good that you're getting some recognition, because obviously a world record's no small thing. Um Have you got your eyes on any kind of future world records? Is it under 17s mile record up for grabs?
Well, the 16-year-old boys mile world record's 3:56, and that's by Ingebrigtsen. So that's gonna be a tough one.
Okay.
I think, to be honest, I didn't really shoot for that world record. That wasn't like a huge aim of mine. On the start line, it was in the back of my head, but ultimately I want to do what's gonna be best for my development. Like I don't want to run 3:55, beat Ingebrigtsen's record, and then never be able to run faster than 3:55. So another world record would be nice, but if it comes, it comes, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
I think that's really good that you said that actually. I can't remember who we were talking about the other day, me and my friends, and this particular guy, I think he's 14 and he's already running like 100-mile weeks. And I just think it's absolutely crazy to be running that sort of mileage at such a young age, because it's like you said, like, yeah, you'll run really quick if you train hard or super hard when you're young, like you're gonna run quick, but it's like how long can you do that for? So yeah, it's good that you've got your head screwed on with that. Do you have to kind of get up early to train before school, or are you able to fit it in around your school life?
On a Tuesday morning, I get up at like 6 a.m. and then I'll go into school early and I'll train on the treadmill at school. That's probably my earliest morning nowadays. I used to run before school, and sometimes I'd be up at like 5 a.m. But that wasn't. I think that maybe wasn't the most sustainable, because I just ended up missing out on like recovery. So now I do most of my running after school in singles, rather than sometimes I was splitting it up more. So now running in more singles has allowed me to just get the extra hour in bed and then feel a bit better throughout the day and not so like groggy and asleep. And then after school I'll go for my run. And then in the evening I'll be asleep and groggy, but I'll not be so bad.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So do you mind if we quickly kind of go through your standard training week? Obviously you don't have to go into like too much detail or like a specific week, but just kind of your standard week, what it kind of looks like. So Monday through Sunday.
So Monday, which is today, I'd normally rest. I'd maybe go in the gym a little bit, do a little bit of upper body work, but I'll not run on Mondays generally, unless it's a race week, which I might change it about. And then Tuesdays, I'll do something like I'll do a threshold in the morning, so like 4 by 5 minutes, but I keep that really controlled. So I do it to heart rate, um, and I'd always rather go too easy than too hard. So I'll do 4 by 5 minutes, and I'll do that at 6 minute mile pace. And then in the evening, I'll do something like 20 by 300 with a 100 jog. I'll do that probably about 5K pace. 5K, between 5K and 10K pace. So like a more aerobic work. And then Wednesday, I'll maybe run an hour in strides, or maybe an hour and 15 minutes if I feel good. Thursday, probably the same, hour to an hour and 15 minutes with some strides. Gym work on a Thursday, so I'll get some proper lifts in. So we've recently, where I live, we've recently been allowed access to this new facility. So it's been put, so a trustee of the club has actually invested and made available a gym to us, which is fantastic. So it's for our runners. We go in there on a Thursday evening now, and it's just down the road from me actually, which is really good. And we'll lift, so we'll do some cleans, some deadlifts, some squats, stuff like that. A Friday, I'll do sort of like a track session. So it'll be usually more speed based, but it won't be too hard. So a lot of people think when you say speed, you think, really hard 400s, really short recoveries, but really we do stuff like on last Friday, I did 3:30s fast full recovery. And then I did 3 by 200 at 800-meter pace with sort of 30 seconds rest. And then 10 by 60 at 800-meter pace on a 30-second cycle. So it was really about developing mechanics at a pace, as opposed to just running fast and having lactic up your eyes. Saturday will be a really easy day. So Saturday I'll run between 45 minutes easy and an hour easy. And then Sunday I'll either do like an hour and a half long run, or I'll do a double, so a 45-minute run and an hour run, or somewhere around there.
Yeah, fair enough. No, it sounds like especially your sessions sound like really fine tuned, if you like. There's no kind of, oh yeah, we'll do that. It will probably help. There's no kind of, let's just do that session. You'll feel the lactic. It's got to be working. It sounds like you're definitely doing the right things for you and the right things to help you develop. Your go-to workout, the one workout, your favorite one, what would it be?
Favorite? We do a session it's 30 by 200 meters on a 60-second cycle, and sometimes you love it, sometimes you hate it. You know, if it's a nice sunny day, it can be a really nice one to do. It can be quite enjoyable. If it's a horrible winter's day, really windy, it's not so good. But I'd say I quite like that one. That 4 by broken K session that I mentioned earlier is also quite good. I think that's good. And then this is 3. I'm getting greedy now, but
it's fine. I'm here for it.
We mentioned, I didn't actually mention it, but we do this session in the summer sometimes. It's 2 by 500, 300, 200. And that's at 1500 meter pace with 200 walk. And that's a good session. I like that. So the sort of 500 gets you working a bit more, but then 300 and 200 at 1500 meter pace isn't all that difficult. So you sort of stretch it out a little bit.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the session that I'd heard about when we trained together last summer. Was the 3200s. I remember you telling me about that. So I really want to give that a go at some point. I'll have to message DC, butter him up a little bit, and see if you can come down and teach us how to do it. What sort of pace are those 200s at?
Usually 36s.
Okay.
So
like threshold 200s almost. Kind of.
Yeah, it's sort of like, it's a bit of a play on, have you seen Ingebrigtsen's 20 by 400?
Yeah.
So he'll do that at like a threshold 2. It's probably a bit of a take on that, I'd say. It's actually from, do you know Nicola Spirig? I think she won the 2012 Olympic triathlon.
Okay.
So
I'll take your word for it.
She used to do her long run on a Sunday. But instead of doing it as a run, to get like good mechanics at a pace, she'd do 100 by 200 at 36.
What?
And she'd just go and she'd do 36 seconds, 24 seconds rest, 36 seconds, 24 seconds rest. And she'd just lock in at that. And it, obviously for such a high level athlete like herself, that was still a decent effort. But in terms of the actual pace, she wasn't bubbling too much lactate. She wasn't. So that's actually where it originates from, but it's quite similar to the Ingebrigtsen 20 by 4. So it's more of a threshold 200 rather than like a hard effort.
That's crazy. 100 200s as a long run. That's insane.
I did 40 one time, and I remember finishing and thinking, geez, like, you know, she's doing 2.5 times like that. It's insane.
I think the most I've ever done is 24, like 2 sets of 12 or something like that. But I love lots of reps. Like I did 2400s last week at kind of like that threshold kind of Jakob style sort of thing. Nowhere near as quick as he does them, but yeah, I'd love to give kind of like 3200s a go. That sounds awesome. So we come to the kind of the more fun part of the podcast, if you like. So I have explained this to you, but I'll just go over it just for the listener if anyone's kind of new to the pod. So we're going to imagine that Corey's he's just taken Jakob's mile record for the under 16. So he's obviously over the moon, and he's gonna get his dream meal. He can have whatever he wants for a starter, main course, side, dessert, and a drink. And then if I approve of his choice and it's not haggis, then I'll pick up the metaphorical tab, and I'll pay for his meal. So yeah, we'll start off with the location. If you had to pick anywhere in the world to have this meal, Corey, where would you like it to be?
That's tricky. Maybe like Mexico. I think like I'm a huge fan of Mexican food, right? So I think like a nice classical like Mexican restaurant. Although saying that, I've never been to Mexico, so it might not be nice. But
yeah, I mean, I've never been either. I've heard it's not the safest place in the world, but I don't know where I've got that from. I think it's maybe from films. But yeah, so I mean, that's a bit of a a wild choice. I respect it because I think Jake Hayward went for Lake Garda, I think it was, so a much more safe choice there. But I respect it. It's okay. We're in Mexico. We've been transported. What starter are you picking? Is there something that you kind of go, oh, that gets my taste buds tingling?
Might have to be nachos.
Well, there you go. Continue the theme. You
A
don't you
good-
don't have to stick to the theme, by the way. You can have whatever you like.
So are we saying it's going to be like a place, and the place can be completely unrelated to the meals?
Yeah, I can cook anything. I've got
So maybe I'll take back my Mexico then. Maybe
Okay.
I'll be in Italy. Let's go Italy,
Okay.
right? And then for starter, I think we'll have pesto pasta.
Okay. Okay, I respect it. I mean, as I said, you do not have to have the cuisine from the country, but Italy is, I think, it's a lot more scenic. I think.
And then I think for the main, it'll have to be like quesadillas. So that
Oh,
that
okay.
was that was what I was going for originally, like, because I think quesadillas is probably my favorite meal. Chicken quesadillas are like unbelievable.
Okay.
Um, and then for dessert,
Oh, you got a side dish first. You got a side dish.
side dish, sweet potato fries.
Sweet potato fries. Okay, I like that. With the quesadillas, I thought I was familiar with Mexican cuisine. You have to explain these to me a little bit. They're like the little folded wrap things, aren't they?
Yeah, uh, yeah, it's like a wrap with like chicken. It's like nicely cooked and like cheese and then
Okay, so kind of like a fajita, but instead of like wrapping it up, you just fold it.
it's
Have I
like
simplified it?
it's like the wrap's cooked in the pan as well. So
Okay.
it's not like a fajita where you just wrap it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna get slated. People are gonna be sending me emails going, "How do you not know what a quesadilla is?" But okay, so we've got your I've completely forgotten what you have for starter. Hang on, it will come back to
Pesto
me.
pasta.
Pesto pasta starter, quesadillas for main, and then you've got a side of sweet potato fries. I'm enjoying this theme so far. I would eat everything. Dessert is my favorite course. What dessert would you go for?
Gosh, this is tough because I'm quite boring. Like, to be honest, I don't really have that much of a sweet tooth.
Okay,
So I'd
okay,
maybe say like some flapjacks, like a nice like a good quality flapjack.
okay. Yeah, I really love flapjacks, so I do approve of that. I mean, I've got a massive sweet tooth, so I could eat hundreds of them. Um, what are you accompanying this with drink wise? Obviously, you can't say alcohol for legal reasons. You're not 18 yet.
Just water.
Oh, okay.
Simple,
Do you
simple and
genuinely like water, or is it more from
fast.
a athletic point of view?
Oh, actually, Ribena.
Okay, Ribena, that's better.
Ribena, yeah.
I prefer that answer.
Ribena or maybe Lucozade.
Okay. As I said, you've just ran the world record in this hypothetical situation. So I mean, you don't have to stay healthy. You don't you don't need to stick to the H2O. You can have some
I
Lucozade.
mean, to be honest, like I'm quite boring with food. Like I will choose if I go into a restaurant after a great performance, I will choose to have the same thing that I choose otherwise. Like I think diet gets too overcomplicated.
Yeah, I definitely overcomplicate it. So yeah, we'll we'll stop that conversation there before I overcomplicate it. But yeah, no, I approve of that meal. I'm a big fan of that. I like the Mexican Italian sort of mix there with a side of kind of sweet potato fries. I'm not sure what cuisine that comes from. But yeah, no, I approve. So thank you very much, Corey, for coming on to the Meet the Athlete podcast. Hope you've
Uh,
enjoyed it.
yeah, it's been great. Thank you for having me.
And best of luck at the racing at Newlands. I just to clarify, it was the mile distance, wasn't it?
Yeah, high school boys mile.
High school boys mile on the 4th of February. So any listeners, don't forget to tune into that. Do you know if it's gonna be streamed anywhere?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it'll be on the telly or not. I'd
I'm sure
say
there'll be a stream
yeah,
somewhere.
YouTube link or something. Definitely, I think.
Yeah, for sure. If not, I'll have to get your dad to live stream it on your Instagram account or something.
Of course, brilliant.
Anyway, thanks a lot. Thanks for coming on. Take care.
Thank you, Carl. Take care.